I wanted to go over some changes that I've made to Blender 2.93 to make it play better with 3D printing. So one of the first things is this tab right here, the 3D printing tab, and this button, Make Manifold. This is really helpful option to have. And basically what it means is if we click on this and we hit tab to go into edit mode, and then I go select by trait, non-manifold, you'll see that we have one end here that is not manifold. Now what that means is there's an error in the model somewhere. There's a double, one of these vertices or something isn't welded quite together. There's basically a hole in the boat. It's no longer watertight. So if I deselect this, then hit Make Manifold, boom, we're manifold. Select by trait again, non-manifold. See, it does not come up as non-manifold anymore. Now, it's not always that simple. If you have a very complex model, sometimes Blender will delete parts of your model. So you have to go in there first and figure out what's wrong and then hand fix it, which is the topic for a whole other video. So we're not going to do that now. So what I'm going to do is show you how to get that 3D printing tab. And it's really simple. As you suspect, you go into Edit, Preferences, zoop. Now under Add-ons, you want to go and you'll see it's a little past halfway down. And it's easy to find on mine because it's already checked, so it's highlighted. So you might have to go a little slower. You got to really pay attention. What you're looking for is Mesh 3D Print Toolbox. See, there you go. And you want to check that on and close that, and you're good. Really helpful little doodad there. Make sure you don't want to send non-manifold prints or STLs to your slicer, because at best it won't print well, and at worst it'll totally freak out your slicer. I've had them do really crazy stuff. So make sure your models are manifold before you make the STL. Now the other thing is over here in Scene Properties. Over here, you can change the unit of measurement that Blender uses. It comes default set on metric. Now I want to make an argument for keeping it on metric. You can go to imperial, and we Americans, we like our inches, right? And I get that. But everything in 3D printing is in metric. Your printer is in metric. Your slicer is in metric. It's all in metric, and it's really not that hard to get used to. In fact, if you come over here, you go to Google, and you put in millimeters to inches, it'll pop up with a little widget, right? And anything you put in there, 0.5 of an inch, half an inch, it'll give you. That's 12.7 millimeters. 500 inches is, well, that's a lot of millimeters. But you get my point. It's, excuse me. You use this, after a little bit, you get used to it, and it's not that big a deal. However, if you really insist, you can go in here, change that into imperial, but the length is set to feet. Now let me show you why that's an issue. We select on that, we go to Item. Now here's the dimension of our box. Now the X is 0.117. Now that's not an inch measurement, that's 0.117 of a foot. What the heck is that? Oh, I don't know. So you want to change this to inches. Now it's 1.41 inches. Same thing. You keep it on metric. You want to change this to millimeters. There it is. Now it's 35 millimeters. That's, you know, about that. That's around an inch. 25 millimeters is really an inch. But you want to change that to millimeters because everything we do is small anyway, right? Even if you're cutting up a big model, you're cutting it up into smaller chunks. Now, all of that is up to you. Do it, don't do it, as you like. This is crucial. The unit scale. Blender comes with the unit scale set to 1 as default. If you try to export an STL from Blender, either your slicer will not accept it or it will come in microscopic. And if you've just cut up a model, you know, you've cut and keyed it so that everything fits together nice, and you have to try and scale it up in your slicer, it's going to be a nightmare. Crazy pants. You don't want to go through that. So you come over here, you change your unit scale to 0.001, and everything will pop up into your slicer at the correct size it was modeled at. Really helpful bit right there. Now, to get this to stay, what you want to do is you want to go over File, and defaults and save it as a startup file. That will overwrite the original. You can always go back to local factory settings. That will bring back your original startup file. So that is really, that will save you from having to do that every time you open up Blender. And those are just the simple changes I make to Blender to make it easier to use with 3D printing.